And thanks for joining our custom login page webinar. My name is Christina Sinopoli. I'm the marketing coordinator at Fruition Partners. And before Jeff takes over and informs you guys about how to make the custom login page, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Fruition and our history. Feel free to submit questions during this presentation, and Jeff will address them at the end of the hour, too. Also, I did want to let you know that this will be recorded and available on our website sometime next week. I'll let you all know when that's available. So basically, we're an IT service management, education, and consulting company. We have clients across the U.S. and a few international clients as well. Fruition has been around since 2003, and as ITIL and ITSM practices have grown, so have we. We've expanded into a lot of different sectors, including law, healthcare, education, and manufacturing. Basically, anyone that needs help with ServiceNow, ITIL, or ITSM process work, you can give us a call. All of our employees have an ITIL V3 certification or higher, and our technical consultants are all experts in their field. Basically, we're focused on complete IT service management integration. From education, we can help you establish a broader ITSM initiative, to administration, where we can build out the latest ServiceNow applications, supplement your existing staff, upgrade you to the latest release, and even take complete management of your instance if you'd like. We also have the ability to build custom applications and tools on top of your platform. Fruition Partners, basically, we're the ITSM one-stop shop. We combine education, consultation, and ServiceNow professional services. With all that being said, I'm going to hand this over to our professional services consultant, Jeff Pierce, who is going to walk you through how to make a custom login page in ServiceNow.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Pierce, and it's a pleasure to be doing this webinar with all of you. So like Christina had mentioned, and as you know, this is for a custom login page to your instance. And so really quickly, prerequisites for this are really, you just need to have basic understanding of HTML, CSS, and basic understanding of the admin tools in your system. And just what I'm going to show you today will give you everything you need to know in order to create your own custom login page. So what we're going to go over is, first we'll just hit a quick introduction to the content management system. Then we'll do the step-by-step login page tutorial. We'll give you a quick customization overview, show you what it's going to take to take this example and that we're doing today and turn it into something that's relevant to your company. Then we'll take questions. So let's jump right in. I am going to use one of our internal instances here to do all of our work in, so you can follow along in your own instance, and we'll try to go at a good pace. There's not a whole lot involved here, so that we can we can look at each piece in depth. So we will start with an overview of the content management system. So this is a pretty new application with ServiceNow within the last year or so, and in the past year, with each upgrade, with each new ServiceNow release, there's the CMS is growing and getting better. So when it first started, it was very bare bones and difficult to work with. What we have now is something much easier to work with, some really great tools to help you build a content management site. So the content management system, it's a ServiceNow plugin that enables the easy creation of custom self-service web portals. And a fully functional self-service portal, CMS portal, is included with every instance that you can activate. And you can go in and look at it, you can modify it, you can copy it to meet your requirements. It's good to use to reverse engineer when you're making your own, or you can use what's already there. It's actually a pretty complete portal. The content management system is designed to offer to your self-service users a portal to your service catalog and your knowledge base. There's a lot more that you can do with it. Currently, the only thing that ServiceNow will support is the knowledge base and the service catalog. But like this last bullet here, you can start from scratch and create something truly custom using your own HTML and CSS, pulling all sorts of functions from ServiceNow into a web page. So let's move right in, and as we go through this login page, you'll see how everything is pulled together in the CMS. So what you'll want to do before you begin a project like this is, well, one, you're going to want to know what your page is going to look like. So you're going to want to gather any images to be used, determine what colors you're going to need to use for your company, you know, what the RGB color codes are going to be. Then you also, very importantly, just want to make sure that you have your content management plugins activated. And I'll take you over to the instance. You can see here's all our content management. So you may have more showing up in your instance, like you can see here in this screenshot. So just make sure that all those are activated before you begin, and make sure that they're activated in all of your instances, because you'll really run into trouble if you try migrating something and you don't have the plugins activated in the instance you're trying to go to. All right, so the first step in creating a login page is to create some content that we're going to put on a page. Let's take a look at the content management application here in the sidebar. And you'll see that it looks a lot like any other WYSIWYG website editor or creator that you may have used. You can we'll go to static HTML blocks, and we'll create a new one. What we're going to do in this step is we're going to create a welcome message to display on a login screen. So click New. Now, for the sake of this tutorial, I just have I have blocks pre-coded just with generic information in them. And oops, sorry. So what I'm going to do is just type this in quickly. You give it a name, login demo, welcome. Now it's very important to think about what you're naming things in the CMS, because you're going to have to go and find these objects later. So it's good to organize them according to site or product. We're doing a login demo, so I'm just going to give it the prefix of LD. This is going to be our welcome text. And I always like to just tack on the end, just for organizational purposes, what kind of block it is. Next thing we do, make sure it's active. The category, that has no functional purposes right now. We're Really, all we're doing in this block is you can enter either some WYSIWYG text and you can change it using these tools, or you can just go straight to the HTML. Now give me just one moment. I'm going to pull up so I don't have to type all this in by hand. I'm going to pull up what I had previously. I have some slides where the code is already there. Sorry, bear with me one moment. There we go. So now when I click out of the HTML, you'll see that's all it is. But I'm assigning some classes in here that I'm going to modify using style sheets. And if you're new to style sheets and CSS and HTML, don't worry about that. You're not going to need to understand what I'm talking about when I point these things out in order to stay with us in the webinar here. So I'm going to save this. So now we just created a block of content. It's just a static block. It's got that HTML in there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a frame. And what a frame is, as you can see here, oops, a frame is a block of code that is going to envelop a content block. So if I want to put a box around some content, I can create a frame and define that box and then assign this frame to any other content blocks. So you'll see how this lines up in the next few steps. So let me copy this text. We're going to come to frames. I'm going to name this LD. So we'll just call it a frame. It's the only frame we're going to use. So what I'm doing here is I'm just creating a div, and that's HTML speak for a block. And I'm giving it this class. And you'll see what we do in the next step with this now. Next, we're going to create a dynamic content block. And this block is going to use this jelly script, which jelly script is a form of JavaScript. Loosely, it's basically JavaScript. And we're going to call the out-of-box login function with this block. If you notice here, we're going to mark this one as two-phase. Dynamic. Give this a moment. Okay. So we're creating a new dynamic content block. And this is going to be our login. Paste our code. Now we're going to assign the frame that we just created. And what we're going to do is with this frame in the CSS, we're going to assign graphics to it and formatting So that's what's going to format our login box. Two-phase. Submit. Okay. Our next step. Now let's just recap what we've done so far here. What we've done is we created two content blocks, one which is a welcome message and the other one which is a login function. And we created a frame. We assigned the frame to the login function. So next what we're going to do is we're going to upload an image to use in that, to use behind the login box. We create a new image. Now we have this image located. Here, let me put this into the chat. If you look in the chat window, that's a URL you can use to grab the example image that we're using. So well, I've already chosen it. Okay, so we'll okay. So you can see it tells you right here. If you want to reference this image now, this is the name that you're going to want to use. So it's basically the same as what you've named it. It's just they throw an X on the end. So when we call that out in the CSS or in the HTML, you're going to have to put an X on the end of the file extension. Okay. Save that. Let's see, what's our next step? Next is to create a layout. So we've created our content. What we want to do now is create a page to display the content in. The first step in thinking about a page is thinking about the layout. How do you want the content to fall on the page? Is this going to have a header and a footer and then two columns in the middle, or what? For this, we're just doing a very simple login page, so we only need one large. Our layout is just going to consist of one cell in the middle of the screen. Because the way CMS works is you create a layout for every page, and then each one of those layouts you can identify as a drop zone. And what drop zones are is you can then, when you're editing a page, drop content into any one of those drop zones. And it's a very easy way to keep your page structured. And you'll see this in action in just a couple of steps later. But this is what we're doing in this step, is we're defining a layout for the page, which in this case is just going to be a very simple layout. And layouts are defined, as you can see here, with the simple HTML border table. And oops, I'm sorry. And with one drop zone. So I'm going to copy us. There we go. To create a new layout. There we go. Let's just verify that. It took a while to save. There we are. Okay. All right, so we've created a layout. Our next step is to create a style sheet. And you can see what, in a style sheet, all a style sheet is your CSS code. And you can see all the out-of-box style sheets that exist here already. It's all just CSS. So we're going to create a new one. And this is going to be what applies all of our custom formatting to our page. Let's call it LD styles. All right. Created, whether it was the static block, the dynamic block, or the frame. So here we're saying with the login box, this is the image we're going to use, except I called that LD. Actually, you know what? I forget what I called that. Let's go look at what I did. That's the important thing too, is always write down whatever you name your stuff, so that way you can go back and find it easily. Okay, LD login image style sheets. So I'm going to go back to my style sheet. It's called LD login image. And so this is defining the graphic that I'm going to display behind the login box. This is telling that I want the login box itself to have a transparent background. This is giving some padding to it to get it to line up on the page. This is formatting the welcome text that we're going to include in that static block we created. And these are this formats some of the text in the login box. So it's very simple stuff that's going on here. It looks complex, but it's actually pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, so we have our style sheet. Our next step is to create a theme. And what a theme is just a collection of one or more style sheets. That's all it is. So I'm going to create a new theme. I'm just going to call it LD active. Now after I submit it, I'm going to have to reopen it to add the style sheet that we just created. Okay. All right. So now we've created all our content. We've created a layout. We've created themes and style sheets. Now we're going to see all this be pulled together in a page. So our next step is to create a page. And we're going to assign the layout and the theme that we created in the previous steps. Let's go to Pages, New, I'm just going to call this login page. I'm going to give it a suffix of LD. Now just some quick notes about URL suffixes here in the CMS is although you can maintain several different sites within one instance, you have every single page is going to have a unique suffix. So if I have different sites and they're all I want to have a different login page for each one, I can't just call this login because I want to make it unique. So I'm just going to add in the abbreviation prefix that I decided on, LD. Okay, the next thing, we're going to assign the layout. Remember, we created the login layout, and we created the theme. Now right here, this title, this is what's going to appear either up here in your tab or your window header, whatever you put in here. So we'll just type in login page. This isn't going to be a part of the site. We're just doing a login page, so we're going to leave this blank. Parent page, this is something new with the June release that I've yet to see documentation on, so we aren't even going to use that. So this is all we need at this point. We have the header information for the page created. We're going to save it. Let's see, what's our next step? Our next step is going to be to add content. Okay, so let's open our page back up, LD login page. We've given it a layout, we've given it a theme, so now let's do edit page. And when you first come here, there's not going to be anything here because we haven't added any content. We're going to add content. Now this is where you see your layout come into play. If you define a more complex layout, you would see it here as a table. If you did a header and a footer with 2 columns in the middle, you would see the header, then a box for footer, and then you see 2 columns. You'd see a little table here with add here in each of those drop zones, so that you would be able to select a content block from up here in the list and then add it to whatever drop zone you want. But we defined just one drop zone for this example. So what we're going to do is going to go and find the content blocks that we created and then add them here to the page. So I'm going to find login dynamic and LD welcome text static. So first let's add the dynamic, the login block. We're going to add the welcome text above it. So this is what it looks like so far. It's going to look funny on this screen because we've applied CSS in the style sheet. So this is just the preview. What you're going to want to actually look at it in its own browser page to get the feel for what it really looks like. Before we do that, let's just make sure we're not missing any steps. So we clicked Edit Page, then we clicked Add Content, and then we chose the blocks we created. So let's go on to the next one. So next thing we're going to do is make a copy of the page. Let me go there here. Sorry about that. Okay. So the reason we're going to make a copy of the page that we just created is because when a user enters invalid login credentials, ServiceNow by default is going to look for a separate page, and it has a specific URL. So to copy a page, we're going to just take our page here, click Copy, and here let's have some notes on what to change it to. Okay, so we're going to change the name to Login Demo View Content. So we'll just do LD view content. And change the URL to view_content. Because out of box, unless you hack the whole login process, this is the URL that ServiceNow is going to direct to if invalid credentials are entered. Okay. Now, because we made a copy of the page, it brought over the content blocks that was there. All we had to do is change the name and the URL. I'm going to save. Oh, you know, I have this page already created, which I forgot about, so it's not going to let me save it. Let's see if we can find it here. Maybe it's not. Okay. Let's see, why didn't it let us save that? Let's try it again. Okay, so now we saved it. Our next step, okay, so now we've created a page and all the content on it. We've created an alternative page for, in the case of invalid credentials. Now what we do is we're going to assign the page we just created as the login page for the instance. And so that's right here in this configuration page under content management. You can define default pages for your instance. So we're going to find LD login page and update. Now, even though we have a default theme over here already assigned, visionary, you know, that's one of the out-of-box examples. It doesn't matter because we've assigned a theme at the page level, and page level always overrides anything higher than it, whether it's site level or instance level. So you can just completely disregard these other three fields here. The only one we're interested in is the login page update. All right. Okay, so now we've taken all the necessary steps. We've built everything. We can go ahead and go look at our page right now. So to do that, you can either navigate directly to it in the URL, or you can just go to your page. We'll do view page. Give it a second here. Okay, now you see we just have a line off in our code that we'll have to go back and fix. So let's go and fix that right now because that shouldn't be there. That's going to be in the static block in our welcome text. Yeah, you see that right there. Go back. That's our product. So let's take a look at this page here. What we see is two content blocks and one of them has a frame assigned to it. The first content block is this one right here. All it says is welcome to this instance. Now let's take a look at why it's green, why it's centered. Let's see, where are we? That's all in the style sheet. And so this is going to give you a, this is going to get your feet wet if you're not familiar with CSS. Let's take a look. Oops. Okay. So you can use your browser debug tools. Chrome is really good. That's what I like to use. Inspect element. So if you look down here, you can see this class, this login text header. So we defined that in the static block that we created. And the purpose of that, so login text header, if we come to our style sheet, see that right there, login text header. So we want that to be centered. This is the color. It's going to be green. Font size 150%. And then this margin is what's getting it to appear over the graphic. Now this next section, the login box, the login box is the dynamic content block we created. And it has the graphic behind it because of the frame. It's the frame that has this frog holding the sign, or gecko, whatever it is. And we've assigned that frame to the login content block. And so you can see, kind of hit this briefly earlier, that frame we called, or we gave it the class of login box. This is the background image that's being used. And these are the dimensions of the image. And this line right here is what gets your login box to be transparent so that it looks like it's over the image. So now this is just one example. I mean, obviously nobody's going to create a goofy frog holding a sign for their instance, but this is a good example to show you how you can use HTML and CSS to customize your login screen. Now let's just test this real quick, just so we can prove that it works. Let's get out of here. I'm going to log out. Now because I assigned that page as our default login page, that's what it's using now. I just logged out and it brought me to this page. Now if I enter the incorrect credentials, see how the URL changed up here? That's why we created a copy of the page with this URL, because that's what it wants to use when you have invalid username or password. So I'm going to give it the right credentials this time. And in we go. So as you can see, that there are relatively few steps here. You can use the code in our PowerPoint that will get you started. Or as you can see here, you might have noticed as we were going through here, the dynamic content blocks, there's already a lot there that's being used. Like I said, there's an out-of-box ESS portal that everybody can activate and look at. That's what most of these are. So like these login, these are all out-of-box, and you can copy those. That's basically what I did to get the copy that I had in the PowerPoints. But to truly make this your own, you're going to want to know how to take one of these out-of-box content blocks and and customize it to your needs. So that's where you're really going to want to know HTML, JavaScript, CSS. When you're taking this out-of-box stuff and transforming it into something unique for your organization. Otherwise, here, and I'll just show you. This is what, if we haven't messed with it. This is the out-of-box ESS portal that's included. Actually, here, let me take you to, well, that's not going to let me type there. So this is the out-of-box ESS portal that you can start from. And it's very useful. You could just take this and start using it right away. It's fully functional, but you're going to want to tailor it, make these menu items your own, include custom reports, custom graphics. So it's easy to start with this and customize it. Or as you can see what we just did with our login page, we started straight from scratch and created everything from scratch and created something truly unique. So I guess, let's see, am I missing anything here? So I want to take this time now. Let's open it up to questions about what we've done. And let's see, did we have any questions already? So go ahead and chat. Let's see, I think I see some here. Go ahead and chat in the chat window what questions you might have. Or here, actually, let me take you just, forget that, we'll go one at a time here. See, Andrew. See, I'm going to. Good afternoon, Andrew. I've unmuted you. Do you have a question?
No, not at this stage, thanks.
Okay. Was Cesar?
Yeah, hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah. Now the question was about the login page. The login page took you to the normal administrator side CMS page. So can we do that, like to make it the login screen and it take you to the CMS?
Sure. That's a good question. The reason why we didn't include that in this webinar was because we didn't create any other pages. But yeah, that's a very simple thing to do. Let's say, for example, upon login, you want your self-service users to go to the self-service portal. So here I'm in the list of pages. Here's this out-of-box portal page. This would be, say, your main landing for self-service users if you were using them. If you were using a portal. So to direct users to this page, you're going to want to modify your login rules. That's down, if you find that in the list under Configuration, Login Rules. Here's where you're going to determine where users go where. You can see the only true item right now is the direct navigation, which is directing to the default UI. So all users are being directed to the default UI. So what you can do, you can either use these out-of-box login rules that are already here. We could activate this one. So users without roles, here, let's just open it up and look. So we have an advanced condition on this. We're getting the user's roles, and if they don't have any, we're going to say go to the content page. So you have two choices: either go to the default UI or go to a content page. You can see actually portal's already listed here, but you can choose from any of your pages. Okay, so we've activated this update. Here, let's go create a user quickly. Actually, I think I have one here without roles. Okay, no roles. All right. So we've activated. I'm sorry. We've activated this login rule so that users without a role will be directed to a page. Let's log out. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left, so we'll go through this quickly. If I log in as this employee now, let's see, it took me to my portal page. Let me log out. Back in here. Just get out of there. So you can see that was relatively easy, and you can add in your own login rules. Where'd those go? You can add in your own login rules if you have users with specific roles that you want to go to a specific page. You can specify that in there by expanding on your advanced conditions. All right. Let's see. So Caesar, did that answer your question? All right. All right, let's move on to the next. We have Raul. You there, Raul? All right, how about Scott Patton? Scott, you have a question? All right, let's see. Good, I see. Those of you with your hands raised, let's see. How about Eric? You there, Eric?
Yeah.
Well, we should explain to them, but they don't even know what something
Yeah, I have some friends.
Okay, looks like his question is, are you able to use divs and spans instead of tables for layout purposes? You know, it's a good question, and I believe that the answer is yes. Because you're calling, the important thing here is the, but you're going to have to experiment with this. I have yet to do this. But to look at that quickly, there's a couple of really important things here in the layout. And so Scott's question is, instead of using this table as the layout, can you use divs and spans, which can be far more flexible than tables? The important thing here is this, that ID, because that's when you click edit content, add content to a page, it's going to look, it wants to be able to find the your structure. So you're going to have an outer element with this ID. Now once inside of that, the important thing is this element right here, is your drop zone. Or actually both of these right here, your drop zone name and setting it to true. If you don't have any active drop zones in a layout, you're not going to be able to add content to your page. So you can experiment. Instead of tables, use divs. Just make sure that you have the ID in there with the JVAR name, and that you have in whatever you want to use as drop zones, that you have this in here. You've given it an ID and you've made it active. So yeah, I would encourage you to certainly experiment with that. Okay, we have another question quickly from Ankush. If we have SSO, SAML 2.0, or some other identity manager configured, can we overcome its login page in this particular thing? Well, that's another good question. So single sign-on, you can, yeah, I would imagine you're going to use that in place of login rules here, because you're managing your logins, completely separately, and you're going to have a lot more power over your login with another application than you would with the login rules here. So I would say if you're doing something like that, then use that to control your login settings, because all you're really going to do with the login rules is on what you're doing with the rest of your organization at a higher level. So that's a difficult question to answer, but I would imagine that you're going to want to use your single sign-on rather than the login rules in that situation. Well, we have that's about all the time we have. If you have any other questions, you can feel free. Here I'm going to give you my email, or you can just post it on our site actually, or you can give me an email. If I wasn't able to get to your question today, sorry about that. But go ahead, either put it on our Twitter account, Facebook wall. So there's plenty of ways to stay in touch with us. We've got a lot of info coming out, a lot of really useful stuff, working on new stuff every day. So stay in touch with us. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Post some questions there about the webinars that you might have, and we can get back to you on them. The CMS, it's a really great tool, and it's very powerful, and it's growing. So if you're finding that right now it's not meeting your company's needs, just wait a couple releases, and they're adding new stuff in every time. So you can follow along with news with us, on one of our sites with that, or ServiceNow is releasing that info with every upgrade. So stay tuned, and it was a pleasure giving this webinar. I hope you found it very useful, and I hope everyone has a great day. And that will be the conclusion of this.